Okay, so the 2013 Chevy Cruze developed a little bit of a misfire under load. So trying to pass or merge, it was fine at idle, but anything under load really caused it to misfire, and you could really almost count the plugs firing. It was that bad. But did some research on it. I did replace the plugs back at about 60,000 miles, which is about 10,000 miles ago. And the next thought is to replace the coil pack, because I've been told at about 70,000 plus miles they sometimes start to fry out and just need to be replaced. It was about a $60 part, and with that comes all of the connector boots and everything for the plugs. So it made better sense to buy the coil pack with the connector boots and the springs and resistors that connect to the spark plugs than to try to piecemeal my way through this thing. I think it would end up being a lot more expensive. I'm guessing this is probably about a $250 fix at a dealer. I'm just totally guessing. But with a part that's 60 bucks, you know, considering the labor, it's not all that much time, but it can't be cheap at a dealer. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do it myself. I'll do the best I can with showing you what I'm doing. The first thing is to pry off the top of the valve cover here, and it's just, you just put a screwdriver under and pry it off, and there's two clips in the back that you have to pull out. They're a little more difficult, as you can see back there. Sometimes dealers don't even get it right, so it could be easier depending on what the last guy did. But anyway, there's the coil pack right there. It presses down on top of the four plugs. So the first thing you need to do is reach over here and pull off the connector, so you can lift the coil pack up without having to pull the connector with it and get stuck, you know, with the wire hanging there. So you just pull that off. It's just a couple of clips. You just pull it off, push it aside. So you get the star driver that you need for this. Looks like a T30, and go like that. I'm using a ratchet, but you can use any you know, a screwdriver style star driver if you want. I just need to loosen it, get it loosened up, and then unscrew them out far enough. You know, the trick on these, as always, is to make sure that you don't drop them down the engine before you even get to the next step. Because as with most of these cars, there's about 3 million places you can lose something like that if you're not careful. So take them out. They're pretty long bolts, and put them somewhere safe. Hold on to them real good. So there's the coil pack, and sometimes you need to put a channel lock on these and maybe put a rag over it or something to keep from hurting it. But since I'm replacing this one, I'm not going to be quite as careful pulling it out. But basically, as you can see, you just pull it straight out. You'll see you have the four boots. Well, there should be a fourth. Not all the boots stick properly sometimes, but it's you'll see the boots that go down onto the spark plugs, as you can see in there. That last boot stuck in. So yeah, you just pull it off. It's not a big deal. Just take a pair of pliers or something. And since, again, I am replacing these boots with the coil pack, I don't really care too much, but it's got to come out. There we go. So it's clean now. Now you can kind of see on this coil, on the boots and the coil pack, the last time I did a tune-up, these things were very they were very corroded. I tried to clean them as much as possible, but obviously they got corroded again. So this is just what happens. I mean, even though they're sealed in the boot, depending on vibration and everything. I mean, I got this thing in pretty good. It ran for several, you know, 10,000 miles after I put the last set of spark plugs in, before it did that again. So, you know, that's not a misfire. That's just potentially oxidation. So, you know, again, it's about time to replace this coil pack. Okay, so with the coil pack out, I did take the opportunity to pull all the plugs and just make sure they were clean. They all look good. I did check the gap just for the heck of it. They're dead on 0.028, which is factory spec. there's a lot of discussion online about whether it should be 0.33 or higher or lower. I mean, if you go lower, you get better performance with a little less fuel mileage. You go higher, better mileage. But, you know, the factory says 0.028. That's what these plugs came in, as from AC Delco 10,000 miles ago. I just checked them right now. They're still dead on. No reason to do anything, so I just put some anti-seize on the threads, put them all back in, and checked them all, and they all look good. So back to the Coilpak, just received here. It's an official AC Delco part. It is made in Mexico, but it is an AC Delco part. So that's the deal right there. You take it out of the box, looks just identical to the one that came out of the vehicle. The boots are brand new. Everything else in there, the springs and the resistor lines and the resistor springs are in place. They're all brand new, so good to go. I just flipped it over, and one of the things you should do before you put these things on is to just look down there. It's kind of hard to see right now in the light that I'm in. I'm in daylight, but down there you'll see the springs. You should be able to see the coil of the actual spring. Sorry, I can't get a better picture of it, but you will see it. You just want to look down there and make sure you see the reflection of the coil, that it's standing there. You can see a little bit of it standing straight up. And if you don't see it, it means you might need to reach in there with maybe a very small Phillips screwdriver and just tap it, or tap the side of the boot and make sure that thing is pointed straight up or down, as the case may be, when it gets in the vehicle, so it contacts the top of the spark plug. Otherwise, you'll be taking this back off to correct it later, and you don't want to have to do that. So you just bring it in, just as we did with the one we took off. You center it over the openings, and press it straight down, just with the pressure of your palm, and you'll feel it sit and seat onto those spark plugs, and there you go. You just put the star drivers back in. I put a little anti-seize on these too, because you're going to thread them in by hand. Of course, first to make sure you get it in there right, but I think it makes sense to put to just check those and make sure they're going in. It's going in smooth. You always want to do this stuff by hand first. Here's what I mean by anti-seize. You just buy it at any auto supply store. You can buy a little packet of it for like $1.98. It's enough to do. You could probably do 5 tune-ups with this stuff on plugs. But always a good idea to put that on anything that's threaded before you start threading it in, because that just keeps it from seizing up on you later and being hard to get out. And you just put it back in with the same star driver you took it out with, and tighten it up. Not over tight, but just really snug, because it is a plastic product, right? So you want to be careful. Then don't forget, you come back over here, you put the connector back on. It just pushes right back on, and make sure it seats fully. It's a little rubbery, so you got to coax it a little bit, and then she should be good to go. You'll want to tighten it up again. So that took a little bit of playing around with, because these things are rubber parts and sometimes they got a little dirt in them, and so I just pulled it off and blew it out, popped it right back in, and locked it back in place. You're going to put the Ecotech cover back on. This is where most people get it wrong, and you can kind of see from these connectors on here that they've been, mangled a little bit from, I think, people rushing maybe in the past to do service here. So those, you just want to make sure that they actually pop inside, as you can see, and then you just pop it down. You just give it a whack, seat it down. Same thing on the front. Again, it's plastic, so it's not going to be the most elegant thing in the world to put back together, but that is tight, and that's not going anywhere. And you're done. So that's how you replace a Coilpak on a first-gen Chevy Cruze. This is a 2013. I think it's the same on everything from 2011 through 2016 or 17, I believe. I think 17 or 18 was when they changed the setup of the car a little bit, but I believe the engine did not change. It's a 1.4 liter turbo. That's the deal. All right, I just started her up. No problems. Everything's looking good. Idle's nice and smooth. These engines are a little noisy. They do have a little bit of a tapping sound sometimes. Sometimes there can be a clicking sound. And a lot of times that clicking sound is actually the timing chain, which also needs to be tightened. It says in the owner's manual what the interval is, but I don't remember right now. We had that done on this car. It really helped it a lot. But you know, it is a turbo. It's got a lot of things going on, so it's a good little engine, but it's not a very quiet motor. Anyway, that's the end of that deal. She's running good. I'm going to take her out on the highway and power it up and see if we cured that problem. Okay, so the epilogue on this car is that we've got a little over 71,000, almost 72,000 miles. Replaced the coil pack, took it up the highway, drove it under load, merged, turned the AC on, put as much load on it as we could. Smooth as silk. Replacing the coil pack, which also replaced the spark plug boots and the springs and everything inside, without even replacing the plugs, but just checking them. Solved the rough idle problem and the miss under fire. So we're all good. So much for our 2013 Chevy Cruze. The coil pack was a very cost-effective replacement, about 80 bucks plus tax. GM factory part, no problem with fitment, went on really well. It was probably about a 15-minute fix. Thanks for watching.